Okay, well, I'm all set up for this New England Railways. I was when I did the intro. But let's see where we have. New Haven and Hartford is the first railroad that'll be offered. And that's this. That could be somewhat important, but it's not in the absolute central location. I'm trying to see whether or not people want to take loans. Now, my inherent gut feeling is it's not a great idea to take loans, because even if everybody else takes a loan, well, if everybody else takes loans and these get bid up above $10, you're going to end up without a rail, and that may be a problem. But if a few people take loans and a few don't, the people who do are going to get the choice railways. So let's see which ones are worthwhile and whether or not they seem worth getting a loan. Worcester and Springfield, that sounds impressive. That's cutting across here, and that's going to be one of the first, it's one of the better lines going across this way, I think, because things like Fitchburg don't have commodities attached to them. On the other hand, a straight line across a couple of places without commodities is kind of nice, because that's worth a couple of track purchases, a couple of upgrades to your income. You won't get stopped by Worcester's demands, as it were. But anyway, Boston and Gloucester, Plymouth. That's this run up here. Or sorry, Gloucester, Portsmouth. That's this run up here. There's a couple of possible places where cubes show up, but not many are going to show up there. And it looks kind of out of the way. It's also an expensive track, which doesn't really mean that it costs a lot to build, but it means it's worth a lot of victory points at the end. Worcester to Plainfield. Where does that get me? That cuts down here and is probably a fairly important location, although not as important as, say, Worcester to Providence, I think. Kingston, Stonington, and Providence. That's going to be down here. Kingston, Stonington, and Providence. That's a dead end. Probably not worth a whole lot. So, where do we end up with this? Well, there are a couple of tracks that I think are worthwhile. I've got this cautiousness about me. I'm going to roll some dice and see if people are really want to spend on the sort of choice locations that I'm looking at, which is this Worcester to Springfield probably, and maybe the Worcester to Plainfield. Some of the others probably not worth much more than their value, I think. Of course, you can grab as much of a loan as you like, but you're pretty much committing suicide if you take too much. All right, one player has decided to. Now, he gets this loan marker and he gets $10, but the next step is servicing loans, so he's only going to get $8 for that loan. Already he's lost $2 on everyone else, and he's going to lose at least 2 more before he pays it off. But hey, we'll see how this works. Other people, more conservative. This gives him a lot more money, but he can still only buy one railway at this point. All right. Discover growth. We get a couple new cubes. That's going to be through flipping this. And this is really hard to read, but it's Providence and Plymouth. I go in the bag and I pull a cube for Providence, a purple one, and one for Plymouth. And you can notice I haven't talked much about these cubes. Gotta find Plymouth. The reason is so many are going to appear that even if there are initial opportunities, I don't know enough about the game to be able to kind of balance my game and say, yes, this is valuable because there's a blue here. So the Hartford to New Haven, I can immediately get a point of income off of. But hey, I'm going to get that some other time, and maybe I could get more at some other point. So who knows, And yes, this is blue, not purple. It doesn't really look it, but that's clearly purple. All right, so now we go. Link completion doesn't happen. Now we're going to publicize the future, and these are the rails that will be available next turn. Now, note, you've already had to choose your loans before you pick these. And let's take a look at what we've got here. Boston and Providence sounds really important to me. That's this route here. That's a key one. Hartford and Plainfield. This cut here, which would connect up to the Worcester Plainfield. That's making Worcester Plainfield more interesting. Providence and Plainfield. So this Plainfield route is becoming more and more interesting as we're seeing more things connecting into that and getting us into this southern area. Blue, in the game that I played with my wife, is tough. At least that's what we saw in that game. Which is to say, unless you have the to get the track to the blue areas, they're all coastal, which makes them somewhat different. The yellows are all interior, though. So there's this sort of, well, not all. There's one up there. Yeah, don't listen to me. But there is a locality to where you deliver things, and that makes it's somewhat interesting, but you don't know where they're going to show up, so I don't know. Boston to Worcester, that's definitely an interesting track. A lot of stuff shows up in Boston. I'm beginning to see that there's going to be a lot of routes into Worcester, though, so maybe it's not worth that much. Who knows? And Boston and Lowell, heading out this way, may not be too important. But there's nothing else going north into Manchester and towards Rutland and stuff like that. None of those seem too huge, but, well, it may be an important pathway. Alright, so we get to auction off the New Haven and Hartford line. And like I normally do with these things, well, people obviously, you're in this interesting position. You want to get something for as low as you can, but by putting a big bid on, you might get it by putting that bigger bid early. So for example, if Blue puts a bid of 1 on for New Haven and Hartford, he can more or less assure he is not going to get that. I'm going to roll a die, and he's going to be dumb and start with a 1. Alright. And somebody will always do that in a game. Green is going up, let's see. Green's is going to bid up to 6 on it. That's a more reasonable bid there. That's already above what it's worth in terms of victory points. So he's saying, I'm not only willing to expend some of my starting cash on this, but I'm willing to expend a victory point at the end of the game in terms of the cash that I'm spending. That's kind of a hefty statement. Blue's going to go up to 7. He did want it. Now, the question is, and everybody else passed there, how bad does Green want it? Green will pass on that. So this is going to go for $7, and that seems like a lot of money. And now, it's a 5-point train. I roll a couple of dice. I got to get above a 5 to make this work. I do so I get to put a track at New Haven to Hartford. And we'll see. At the very least, I can deliver a Blue down to New Haven, and I'll be getting some income back on that. I'll come back after I've sold some more railways. Well, Green jumped in and bid 8. No, 7? No, 8 on the Worcester and Springfield. Nobody topped them on that. This weird color. Salmon. Close to. Opened up at 1 for the Boston, Gloucester, and Portsmouth, but ended up getting kind of committed to it and ended up paying 7 for it. So we're seeing these things are going at higher prices than maybe I expected. I like to make a deal, and I felt like this guy kind of wanted to try to get this for 3 or 4. It's not a great railroad, but he made a victory point off of it. But he doesn't have good track. This is a really crappy track line. Now this guy's the guy sitting with all the money. He wants the Worcester and Plainfield, and he's willing to go fairly high on it. This isn't necessarily the one he wanted. Worcester to Plainfield, he may actually want... Yeah, this is the last one that he wants. So he's willing to go maybe above $10 for it. But there are other good things coming in the next line. You don't want to spend all your money on that one boat. But if he goes, if he doesn't go above 10, somebody else might go to 10 on that. Just because. Well, he got away with a good price. Only $7 on this. $8, sorry. I think Pink drove him up a little bit. He started with 6. Black got away with a bonus here. He only paid $3 for this. Now, Pink was bidding up one of the other ones, but decided to take a pass on that. Now, Pink has the special ability at this point. We can see one of the tracks didn't get built. This is to remind me to put that there next turn. But all the rest made their lucky roll. Nobody paid money. Now we're at the ship commodities point. Only Pink can ship a commodity. He doesn't want to. He'll only be helping other people if he does. Sometimes you want to ship a commodity only on someone else's line, I guess. In the two-player game, certainly, because I would look and see, my opponent can ship that commodity for a lot more than I want her to, so I'll play it now and only ship it one space and give her a much lower bonus off of it. But that may be a little bit of a stretch, and certainly this early in the game you're just giving people early cash, which might not be a wise thing. So then after Pink gets their special bonus ship ability, because they didn't buy a rail, I can move these down. If any hadn't been sold, they'd be discarded. Now we start with Blue, and Blue could quickly make a buck. I think they want to do that. They don't know what they're going to get rail-wise anywhere else. Someone else might get a shipping jump on them. So they'll push this up one, and it's going to go right back in the bag at the end of that. I'll start moving these over to indicate what people have bought already. Green, Worcester to Springfield. They can't deliver anything worth money, so they can't deliver. Salmon doesn't have the right to ship. Worcester to Plainfield doesn't produce anything. Kingston, Stonington, and Providence. That's down here. Lots of little cubes in Providence. I could pull a blue one down or a purple one. Purple is worth a lot up here. This is a tough call because I don't know if I'm going to get this railroad up here. It might be that the best move I can do is to play the purple one and get rid of it. But I'm going to just drive the blue one, and that puts me up to the 1 marker. And again, these trains really kind of fill the spaces a little too widely. Now we get to market change. There's no chance of this failing, of anybody's values going down. I can't roll less than a 1, especially when I add 1 to the die roll. So I'm not going to bother. Receive income, 2 players, blue and black, each get $1. Woo! How much money did we each lose this turn? Yeah, but it improves. And then the first player moves, and we get a new player to the first. And I'll load this one up. That's the first turn of the game. I'll do the rest in much, much quicker fashion, just to kind of show the development.